Over the past few days, since starting my YouTube channel and being really passionate about it, which I am, I found it very hard to think of ideas when I try and force myself to. I've also found it very hard to be creative and have good ideas when I've been too stimulated. And what I mean by that is too much time on my phone, too much time watching videos, too much time scrolling. You get the gist. And I've noticed that there is a correlation between good ideas and ideas in general arising and us being present and our environment being free of distractions and stimulations. Now, I think ideas need space to arise, and if we do not give them space, then they become cloudy. Anything that exists, it needs space. Space is the fundamental. It's like anything. This is what I heard once. I think it was Sam Harris on the Waking Up app, which is a meditation app I use. On one of his reflections, I think he mentioned that all sound comes out of nothingness. And so if you listen to my voice right now, the fact that you're able to distinguish my voice from silence is because silence exists. If silence did not exist and there was just noise, all of it would be clashing with each other and it would cancel each other out, and it would be something like white noise. Whereas the nothingness, the very opposite of noise itself, is what gives grounding for noise to exist. It's what gives it contrast, which allows us to be able to differentiate it from its opposite. And so everything has its opposite, and that's for a reason. But when it comes to having ideas, they need space to arise. Because if you're already being bombarded with a tirade of ideas that are not coming from you, ideas don't really come from us anyway, do they? They come from the ether. They come from somewhere out there, like a cloud that we're constantly picking from. It's almost like we need to set our inner environment correct, which also constitutes our outer environment, our immediate outer environment. We need to get that correct for ideas to be attracted to us. Because you say you have an idea, but where does the idea come from? Does it come from you, or does it come from somewhere outside of you that you are connected to? I don't know. I'm just asking the question. But what I found personally is when I am in an environment that has plenty of distractions or stimulation, or when I've been hyper-stimulated, because a lot of people, they don't see like watching an hour of videos or, scrolling for half an hour as hyper-stimulation, because we got people out there that are being stimulated from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to sleep. And that's certainly not you or I. But what we've got to understand is, evolutionarily and biologically, we haven't had time to adjust to the changes that have come at such a rapid rate over the last decades, in terms of technological advancements, in terms of the internet, in terms of mobile phones, social media. All of these things are like brand new, absolutely brand new, and we're not prepared biologically to deal with them yet. We will over time as evolution progresses and we adapt to our environment. But right now, we're one of the first generations that has to deal with this problem. And if you can't love your problems, you can't love life. And so you need to embrace your problems and try to work around them and see them as opportunities to provide solutions. But the only way you're going to do that is if you try and think outside the box and do what nobody else is doing. That's how you be innovative. That's how you be creative and unique. And so if you want to do that, you need to start thinking, why can't so many people have good ideas or be creative, or why do they struggle with that aspect of their life? it's because of hyperstimulation, I believe. There's so much coming in that there's no room for anything to come out. You know, you need space for the output to stop and for what is already inside to calibrate itself and adjust, and our nervous system to adapt to what we've already taken in, so that we can organize that into something that we can put out. And even if you don't think that ideas come from a cloud that we connect to with like the frequency or vibrational level that we are operating on, and if you think that ideas come from yourself, well, stimulation enters yourself, right? And you've got all of these ideas that are going on in your head and things like that. All this stimulation, all of this consumption. How can you be expected to produce something authentic and real and meaningful when you've got all of that clutter in your garage? You know, if you see it as like a garage, you can't get around because there's just so much stuff everywhere. You know, you want to fix your car, but you can't. You want to do something to make it better, but you can't. There's not enough room. You need space to maneuver around. And think about it, why is a room called a room? Living room, bedroom, because there is room to move around in that room, and there needs to be room to move around in yourself. You can't be so cluttered with consumption and stimulation that there's nothing authentic coming from within yourself, because there's not enough space for it to arise, or there's not enough space for it to be created, whether you believe it comes from yourself or whether you believe that it comes from outside. It still comes from something you are deeply connected to. And so you are what you consume, and you need to be careful with what you consume, and you need to be careful with how stimulated you are, because not only does it affect things like your dopamine levels, which can obviously affect other aspects of your life like motivation, but it also affects your attention span, which is obviously a critical ability we need to have if we want to be successful in whatever we do. We need to be able to focus. And if you want to have good ideas, you need to stop being so stimulated.